Hey, Chef, welcome to Blunder Check. Let's get started. So we have a 1000 level game, and we're on move 11, and we're just going to take a look at the moves that Black is going to play, and Black is going to lose this game, and we're going to try to put ourselves in their shoes and just do blunder checks for all the moves. So the only thing we're concerned about are the tactics, so the forcing moves for the opponent against our moves. So White plays knight f3, and okay, so Black wants to play h6. So I'll just keep this highlighted here. But if you want, you can pause the video and think as if you were in a real game and just do a blunder check. So does h6 allow White any forced wins of material or checkmates? Okay. So hopefully you had some time to think, and this is going to be like the format for like each move. Like I'll like highlight Black's move, and then I'll just tell you to pause, and then hopefully you're in time to pause, and then think in that format. So you get used to it as we go along. This is my first episode, so that's why I'm kind of extra explaining what's going on. But now you've definitely had enough time to pause. So let's see. So the first thing about finding tactics for the opponent is that it's not that much different than like flipping the board and finding tactics for yourself. In terms of the blunder check, the only difference is you have to visualize one half move ahead. So change it. So this isn't the actual position; it's the position with the pawn on h6, no pawn on h7. Okay, and the first thing that you want to do is kind of get a list of candid moves. So the forcing moves are going to be really useful to look at. So that's all checks and all captures for sure. And then all threats that you can see. So threats will be moves that threaten to check or capture. And those are going to be hard to see because there will be a lot more of them and some of them can be hidden. So at the very least, try to find all checks and captures in every position that you look at. So here I'll give you a little test. What checks does White have in this position when we moved a pawn to h6? So there should be one, and that's going to be knight takes this pawn. That's going to be check. Now what captures do we have? So if you want to pause again, just count how many captures does White have against us. Okay, so now if I'm just looking at this position, like this can be done in about like 5 seconds or less in general, just seeing all of the checks and all the captures. So if I just go like this, there's those, this, and then that. So I believe those are all the captures. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know if I counted the queen one already, but something like that. So you definitely want to be able to look at a board, and this is like board vision. So when you see like strong players solve tactics instantly, it's because no matter what position you show them, they will be able to just scan all the pieces and know that this isn't attacking anything. This is only attacking this pawn. This queen isn't attacking anything there, but it's attacking this pawn. This knight attacking these 3 pawns. The bishop is attacking that. This bishop isn't attacking our pieces. This rook isn't attacking our pieces. So again, like in 5 seconds, you want to be able to do this. Now, on lower rated players, they're going to be slower than higher rated players at this, and that's going to be a big part of what makes a difference in skill in blitz and bullet, I think. So, and now another thing about why people tend to blunder is because, okay, we're doing all this, and it turns out none of these forcing moves really do anything to us. Like, so again, I keep forgetting. So, like, all these captures are like sacrifice material, but I don't believe when you look at them, they lead to anything else. So, like, if we take a look at the knight capture, we could just recapture with the pawn, and then when you're calculating, you want to calculate all forcing moves until there are no more, and the position is quiet, ideally. So, like, here, the knight would then be able to take the pawn, then we can recapture, they can recapture. There's going to be, like, more branches, but it should be clear to see that here they're just giving away material for free, and they don't have any good follow-ups. And one thing that'll help you see more follow-ups is if your tactical vision is better. So when you're solving tactics, that will help you find good candidate moves after you look at some sacrifices. So So yeah, so like none of these moves I don't believe lead to any danger. So I would say h6 is a safe move. And this is a thing that, again, strong players, even in Blitz, they'll be able to confidently say, yeah, they don't have any tactics against us here. Okay. And the thing is, you have to do this on every move. And that's why, because you don't know when you're going to make a tactical blunder. But especially at this rating range, they're going to make one at some point. And there's a good chance that they're not really looking at all the forcing moves every step of the way. Because you kind of get comfortable when you make a whole lot of moves. Like for this opening, for instance, we're on move 11. There's no tactics so far. So you kind of keep going with the flow, and then all of a sudden they just miss something. But you have to be on high alert every step of the way, especially right when you leave your opening prep, because then you're not playing safe moves that are memorized as good. You have to really think on your own. So we looked at h6. I don't see anything wrong with it. All their forcing moves are fine. And again, we're not looking at positional stuff. There could be positional things wrong, like maybe h6 is too slow. Maybe you want to move the bishop and castle or something. But no, what's going to win or lose you games is missing the tactical thing. So that's why we're focused just on that skill and isolating that. Okay, so I think this is going to be what will improve most of the viewers' rating the most is this kind of training. So that's kind of why I built the series in this way. Again, sorry, I'm just explaining like a lot because this is the first episode and want to get all this information out there. A lot of the other future episodes, it'll be more streamlined where we're just looking at the move. So I think I gave you all the background you need to know. We did the first move, so let's go ahead and play it and see what white does. Okay, they do take. So again, they actually played one of our candidate moves, which was a capture, and we know that we weren't really scared of it because we could just recapture with the bishop. So let's see what they do. So they do recapture. But before we do that, let's actually just blunder check. Even though it's like a simple recapture, that can also be a place where people can fall into traps, because if you make a move that you think you have to make, but then the opponent can just checkmate you, then you don't want to do this. You want to find something else. So right now, if we take, do they have any checks, captures, or threats? And I guess this is when we looked at h6. If we saw that they could take the knight, we kind of would have to calculate taking the bishop and evaluating that that's also safe. So we kind of already should have went through this. So I'm not even going to ask you to pause the video for this. But if I'm just looking at it, I don't see any things. Like there's this knight threat that would attack the bishop that's free, but we could just take it. So that's the kind of moves you're looking for. Just all checks, captures, and threats, even though they might look kind of crazy. So let's take, and then so they move this pawn out, and black wants to play d5. So here, pause the video and see, is d5 safe? Do they have any forcing moves against us? Do they win any material? Or do they checkmate us by force? So I want you to evaluate this move. Okay, now I immediately see something that's kind of sus about d5, and it's that these knights are both attacking this pawn, and this move removes the defense of this pawn. So, and the queen is the only thing that's guarding it. So it looks like they could just win a pawn just like that, which would be the first tactical blunder of the game. And this is really just enough to lose the game, to be honest. So you'd never want to have to make a move like this that's just going to give up material, unless there's some way to get material back or something, but it looks like it's just a blunder. Um, so, so after d5, and I feel like almost either knight could take. I would guess the c knight is going to be better to take with, because if you take with this knight, black might have this move to kick the knight and then take this, but that wouldn't be in time because they would take the bishop and attack the queen. So, um, but I would still like to take with this knight if I was white anyway. But here, knight takes here, so that's what we're looking at. Is black just down a pawn? Yeah, I don't see a way to immediately get it back. So I would say this is a blunder. Now I could be miscalculating stuff, but it also seems like this is just a blunder. So they take that way, which kind of lets black go a little bit, I think. Although there's still pressure on this pawn, like everything's attacking it, and it's still only defended once. But yeah, because now I'm looking at like knight here, and maybe you have that at some point. Okay. Anyway, that is what they play. So now we gotta blunder check this. Here again, I probably wouldn't ask you to pause the video just because we kind of already know that this pawn is about to fall. So we'll just see how this variation plays out, and then try to evaluate after. So you take with the queen, and then they take. Okay. So black wants to play this move, and so the knight is attacking the bishop. So that's why they moved out the way. But I'll ask you anyway to pause the video and do a blunder check to see, is this actually the best place to put the bishop, or would you do something else? Okay, and I do think this probably is the best move. Like you don't want to take this pawn. This bishop is just hanging, and maybe they didn't want to give up the knight for the bishop, so they are up a pawn still. And you don't want to go here because they would fork, and then this would also obviously lose to the pawn. So this is probably one of the better moves if you want to keep the bishop here. And that's probably the only compensation you have for being down a pawn, is that you got a bishop here at least, and they don't. Okay, so this I don't really see any good checks, captures, or threats. Actually, don't see any checks against us. They could move this to kick the knight, but we could just move out the way to a safe square. This might not be the best move. I would consider this, but I'd be more scared to play this without calculating because I feel like the knight could sometimes get trapped. Although in that variation, you would fork these two. But as long as I find one safe square, I'm not scared of this move. And then if they play it, I might start to look for something else. So bishop b7 looks to be like a safe move, and so far we're just down a pawn. So now I don't know if there's going to be more blunders to come, or if that pawn that was lost is going to be the deciding factor. We'll just keep guessing. This is a relatively short game. Okay, so they bring the bishop out, and black wants to castle. Okay, now this is an interesting one. So pause the video and do a blunder check on castling. Castling queenside. Okay, so I think this could be a blunder because the knight going here would fork the two rooks. So this is an easy blunder I could see people making, because you'd have to visualize that this rook is going to be here and the king is no longer guarding this pawn. So this is like a blunder I can understand and forgive for the most part. But it is also one that you definitely don't want to make. So how long did they take? Okay, they played this in 5 seconds, so it's kind of rushed. They had way more time than the opponent. This is a rapid game. And if they were just to visualize their move and ask what checks, captures, and threats does the opponent have, they would see this capture in that it attacks two pieces, and they're just going to win more material. So this is probably the losing blunder of the game. I don't know why it does that. So yeah, castling just walks right into this fork, so I don't like that. So if you saw that, then good job. But white didn't see it. So they could have just taken and then forked. So this is why like tactics is the most important at this level, because your opponents will always give you chances and they won't always see all the chances that they have. So if you're just slightly more alert than your opponent, then you will win more games consistently just from that. Okay, so they didn't see it and they just moved a pawn. Now black is going to play bishop g7, so let's blunder check that. Well, hopefully if you've been paying attention, you know this fork is still there. they can just go here and take this. So maybe this is, like if I had to speculate, them playing bishop g7 is gonna give them attention to this knight, and that's gonna lead them to find the fork and win the material and then win the game. So they're kind of helping their opponent find a tactic. So let's see if that's actually what happens. Yeah, so they go for the fork, and okay, that's the end of the game. They just resigned. So this game could have been over like a move earlier if they saw the fork in the first place, but we just got the bishop move, and then they resigned after this. So now I want to look at the engine. I want to look at that point with them losing the pawn. So they played, so the evaluation before this was black was winning slightly, like 0.99, pretty much up a pawn. They go here, and you see the evaluation is very favoring white now, but it's not like a winning advantage, but it is like a lot better. And I actually prefer knight f to this is pretty close, but yeah, stuff like this is just they're just down a pawn, and white has the edge, and black has to play very accurately. See, they have to play bishop b7 because of this. So it's like every other move is gonna lose, which for me is kind of interesting because this move looks like it protects the bishop. So what's actually, but it's not surprising that there's something in the position. So let's actually take a look. So knight takes, oh, that's nice. That's crazy. So you would have to calculate that to know why queen d6 doesn't work, because they're attacking this, and it's a discovery, and you can't even block with the queen because the pawn would still take. So that's actually really cool. But this is all because they just did a basic blunder of a pawn, and it takes like computer lines to get any like counterplay sometimes. But the main tactical blunder was just this castle allowing this knight fork. And again, we saw if we just look at what checks and captures that they have, at least, then we would have been able to see that this castling move was bad, and they played in 5 seconds. Now they played the bishop move in 10 seconds and failed for the same tactics still. So this is really just like needing to work on tactics, but also finding tactics for an opponent, because maybe it's possible that if they were doing tactics from their side, like if you reverse this, maybe they would have immediately been able to find this if they were given this as a tactical puzzle. But when you're playing a game, you have to do it for the reverse. You have to take a look at what can your opponent do against your moves, and then avoid things that just lose to a forced material or so on. So hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one. We'll be doing a lot of videos like this, at least 15 videos at this rating level, 15 videos at the 1500 level. So, so yeah, hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.